Hello everyone and welcome to our smartphone imaging trends webinar where we're going to be discussing new trends, new directions in our industry that are taking the smartphone camera to a whole new level. Our guests today include colleagues from DXOMARK, from Honor, Qualcomm, as well as a professional photographer and film director who's going to be talking about his experience in using one of the most advanced cameras on the market today. There's been tremendous advances across both hardware and software in just the last few years. And today's best smartphones are coming close to DSLR quality across many different scenarios. We're going to talk about key industry trends that's driving all of this innovation and discuss some of the main elements that make up a great smartphone camera. Learn how different smartphone makers, the OEMs, are delivering on great experiences, and finally get some perspectives on exactly how far today's smartphones have come and how far they're going to go. But first, a couple of housekeeping items. We will have a Q&A session after the panel session today. So if you would like to ask a question, please click in the Q&A icon, which should be at the top right of your screen. We'll try to get to your question if we can, but if we run out of time, we will have someone get back to you via email after the webinar. For our Chinese colleagues in the audience, we will be providing a real-time interpretation, and you can click on the translate button with the headphone icon at the bottom of the bottom right of your screen once that part commences. And we'll let you know just before the Q&A. And one final note, due to time zone issues, our guest from Qualcomm had to present separately, and we've included him at the end of part one. But not to worry though, he will be rejoining for the Q&A, which is taking place during the latter part of the webinar. All right, so I think it's time to begin. And I would just like to kick off really by letting you know that the content of this webinar has been developed from a white paper which is available to all participants, and you can see where you can download it on the screen here. You can download it from Counterpoint Research, but it should be sent to all registrants to the webinar. So I'm first going to spend a couple of minutes just talking about some of the trends that we're seeing, particularly around hardware, but it's actually in the software where the magic is really happening. Let's start off by looking at megapixel counts. So these slides are a little bit busy, but what we've seen is something which is quite interesting. So over the last couple of years, megapixel counts have been growing, but then have actually been sort of slowing down more recently. But that's not a bad thing, as we will see. So if we take megapixel counts, which is showing on the left-hand most chart on this slide, and what it shows is the average megapixel count has grown, as I say, but actually when we dig into the details, what it shows is that the megapixel number, the average number of megapixels in flagship camera phones has actually started to shrink. Now, the main reason for this is because smartphone makers are now opting for bigger sensors with bigger pixels to increase light sensitivity. And the chart on the right shows the average number of cameras that we're seeing in smartphones. And again, we're seeing something of a plateau occurring here as well, with the average number of cameras on the rear of the phone hitting around 3 by the end of 2020. And the best camera phones today have typically around 4, a quad camera setup. Turning inwards and looking at the latest system on chips, which are really the brains of a smartphone, what we're seeing is the average processing speeds for flagship devices have reached levels that would have been unheard of just a few years ago. And you can see in the chart on the left of this slide, the past 2 quarters seen average processor clock speeds hitting 3 gigahertz, with much of that being dedicated to image signal processing. But that's also being enhanced with many smartphone makers, Honor included, now pivoting to include a dedicated image signal processing chip, which helps with much of the heavy lifting within the photographic element of the device. So hardware will continue to be the foundation of imaging innovation, as we're seeing with the addition of things like dedicated image signal processors, auxiliary time-of-flight sensors, bigger image sensors and the like. But as the growth in hardware specification shows, what we'll also see is a concomitant increase in the software level innovation, which will become a major driver of differentiation across different smartphone camera models. What we're talking about here is things like AI algorithms, different implementations around multi-frame and multi-camera fusion techniques, integration and tuning, image signal stabilization, and so on. And these are the things that we refer to as the magic that ties together all of the hardware components. So with that, I think it's a great time to bring in our first speaker. He's an old friend of Counterpoint Research, and that's Hervé Makudzinski, who's the Image Science Director at the independent testing company DXOMARK, which is known for many things, but amongst those, its smartphone camera rankings. Hervé is going to talk about some of the things that go into a great smartphone camera experience and tell us how the Honor Magic 4 Ultimate topped their rankings in recent tests. Hervé, over to you.
Thanks, Peter. Thanks for this nice introduction. It's always a pleasure to attend to this kind of webinar. So just a short introduction about who we are. We are an industry-leading company that is focused on testing consumer electronic products, especially smartphone, and we developed a lot of in-house protocols that are designed in order to evaluate image quality, but also video, audio, battery, and display. All these test reports are, of course, available, and we are also the editor of DXOMARK.com, where we publish all the results of this report for the final consumer. We are at DXOMARK always applying the same methodology in order to have a score that is correlated to the final user experience. So for any kind of protocol, we will at first focus on the use case, which are the main common use case, how is used the camera, how is used the display, and so on. And based on all this use case and based on the popularity of this use case, we will build dedicated testing. It could be in the lab because we have a lot of software solution in order to measure in the lab the quality of the camera, display, and battery. But it could be also with real life tests. We call that perceptual tests. Here, the objective is to have a rigorous perceptual test that evaluate a lot of criteria in real life condition. The two methodologies lead to one overall score that match as much as possible with the user experience. So here we are speaking about camera, and one first things that we need to say is that a great photography is really more than just hardware specification, because to achieve a good photography, and I am pretty sure that Eugenio will speak about that, but we need a lot of skills, and at first photographer skills, which means we need to identify the scenes, we need to provide the right framings, and we need also to select accurately the moment that we want to capture in order to provide the exact time of and the exact memory that we want to share after with the pictures or the video. Then the camera needs to capture the moment, which means that they need to have the clearest information at the right time. This is what does DSLR, and this is what needs to do a smartphone camera. After that, there is another part which is mostly performed by the photographer or the videoist, which is the photo and the video processing. Here, there's a lot of manual processing that are performed with a dedicated software solution. And for the smartphone camera, here, the smartphone camera needs to do that automatically. This is one of the challenge of the smartphone camera industry, and this is one of the topic that is the more interesting, in fact, when we design such kind of camera system. So overall, the smartphone camera needs to provide a sort of all-in-one in the default mode. Default mode is the more popular mode in smartphone industry, and so every engineer that are involved in the design of such kind of camera needs to think to how a photographer could behave with respect to the scene and what could be the rendering that will be the more accurate and the more pleasant for the final user. Here, it means a mix between the DSLR capture capability, but also photographer skills in order to provide the best picture and the best video. So here at DXOMARK, we are testing the whole things and we are testing the final quality. And the Honor Magic 4 Ultimate is a very nice camera that achieving very high score for every aspect. The overall score is the top score. It was published in March during the product launch. And since this date, it's still the top score in our camera ranking. It is also the top score for photo, for zoom, and also for video. That means here that overall the camera provides great user experience, great capture capability, but also great software and AI processing capabilities in order to provide the best all-in-one experience. So I will not have the time to discuss in detail about all the results, so I just chose one specific topic, the zoom, because behind the zoom technology here, there's a lot of topic of interest, and one specific technology could be one trend for the next months, which is the camera fusion and also the AI technology that help to provide the best user experience with the zoom. So providing a zoom and a good zoom quality means to provide good zoom out, but also zoom in performance. And it does not mean only to provide just one or two buttons, you know, on the UI. It means to provide good quality on the whole zoom ratio, on the whole focal lengths that are the most popular from a photographer perspective. Here, if the user wants to pinch in or to pinch out with the UI, he should be able to have the best quality. And to do that, it means a lot of challenge in terms of hardware design, but also in terms of software capabilities. If fusion camera is available and if software processing is efficient, it could have a strong impact on the hardware design of the camera, because as long as you are extending the capabilities of zooming with such kind of technology, you can also make some different choice on the focal you will use for the TD or for the ultra wide. And the Honor Magic 4 Ultimate for such kind of purpose is a very good example of what you can do in order to extend the photo space and also the video space. Based on the fusion technology, which will impact the ultra wide and also the short telefocal, they can provide good quality for this zoom ratio, and so they can choose a longer telefocal for the tele camera. So this is a very good example of what can bring the fusion algorithm to the hardware design. Then, looking at the results on the DXOMARK score, here you have the score that are normalized for each zoom ratio that we are testing here at DXOMARK. So there is 5 main zoom ratio that are tested. You have the ultra wide angle, you have the wide, which is the main camera, and then we call the close range, medium range, and long range. The close range will correspond to a focal between 40 and 60 millimeters. The more, maybe one of the key feature is the ultra wide and also the close range zoom ratio, because for such kind of zoom ratio, in fact, the hardware is not helping so much, because in fact the TD is further than this kind of zoom ratio, for example here. And for the ultra wide, we are testing also a lot of intermediate focal between the ultra wide and the wide focal, which means that to provide this kind of results with the Honor Magic 4 Ultimate, Honor had to improve the overall software performance and to use fusion between the two cameras in order to provide the best quality for each zoom ratio. So here is another interesting slides that show the interest of the fusion with multiple camera in order to provide the best image quality. You have a comparison of the texture AI matrix that is performed in the lab for 1000 lux. We have in blue the results we have on the iPhone 13 Pro Max, and in orange you have the Honor Magic 4 Ultimate. The thing that is interesting on the iPhone, you can see that the results from the main camera is decreasing significantly for intermediate zoom, and then increasing as long as the button is activated and as long as the TD camera is activated. And then this kind of algorithm is of course very interesting, because we can imagine a lot of features in the future, and it will also demand a lot of resource and a lot of ISP computational power improvement. But we can imagine such kind of feature on the video zoom, but also for bokeh simulation, because bokeh is also a feature that is very interesting for various focal lenses, which means that fusion should be also applied for bokeh photo, and maybe in a close future for bokeh video. So that was a very short overview of one interesting feature that is into the Honor Magic 4 Ultimate. Of course, there's a lot of other features that brings a very good user experience on this camera. Thank you for your time.
Thanks very much, Hervé. Always fascinating to get your perspectives. And our next speaker actually comes from the maker of the Magic 4 Ultimate smartphone. So no one better to talk about the camera system behind what we've just heard from you, Hervé. And that's Dr. Hu Weilong, who's a technical expert for imaging at Honor. So Dr. Hu, please share with us your expertise, and so we can understand more about how you make the leading smartphone camera at this time.
All right, thanks, Peter. Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Hu Weilong, a technical expert in the Honor R&D team, and my work centers around our imaging technology. It's with great pleasure for me to introduce you all to what we have been working on and our plans for the future. As you may know, smartphone photography is the sum of a great many things. It's not just about hardware or software. It's a whole that is greater than the sum of its parts. To bring them together requires careful planning and extensive technology knowledge. In fact, that is what we have been focusing on and where we excel in. I'd like to first introduce you our camera architecture. We call it the Honor Image Engine. It is the fabric that weaves together the various components from our cutting-edge model camera modules to the system on chip through to the AI algorithms. The Honor Image Engine is comprised of 4 parts: the collection engine, the perception engine, and the decision engine, and the enhance engine. These lay the foundation upon which we create the ultimate user experience, one where users can freely capture and create the breathtaking visuals through our smartphones, tapping into the various features we have to offer. Photography is all about capturing light. Light is the building blocks for any photography, and we capture it with our hardware. Our Magic 4 Pro comes with 3 fantastic cameras, each having a different focal length. The main cameras come with a 1/156-inch sensor and a 7P lens. It's a lens that helps you capture all the details in all their glory. The telephoto cameras come support 3.5 times optic zoom, perfect for close-up, and supports up to 100 times digital zoom. The photography subject could be far away from you, but you will have no issue capturing a clear image of them. The 8x8 top laser system also makes landing that sweet focus easy. These cameras work together to deliver some of the best smartphone photography and the video capture experience that technology today has to offer. Next, in the Magic 4 series, we also offer the Magic 4 Ultimate. What sets it apart from the Magic 4 Pro, or perhaps even all flagship smartphone over there, is the CMOS sensor, which is among the biggest of its kind ever put into a smartphone. One thing to note is we had not compromised on aperture size with a large sensor. Thanks to our great hardware R&D team, we managed to fit a f1.6 lens on top of its big sensor. We've also got something exciting and unique for our ultra-wide cameras, the dual freeform lens, which effectively reduces distortion and has an effective focal length of 11 millimeters, making one of the widest lenses on a smartphone to date. But that's not all. It also comes with a dedicated ISP that provides real-time 4K raw noise reduction. This specific feature makes recording clean usage footage possible on a smartphone. Again, through our R&D team effort, these cameras all work in synergy, creating the best camera smartphone out there as tested by our peers at DXOMARK. Besides the incredible hardware we have in our smartphones, we've gone great lengths to ensure that we have highly sophisticated AI algorithms backing them up. If the hardware components are the body of an imaging system, and the AI algorithms are the soul. Ever since the Magic 3 series, we have been staying committed to multi-camera fusion. By going down this road, we provide a very consistent imaging results across the most commonly used zoom ranges. The second AI algorithms I'd like to highlight is our AI RAW for video, which greatly expand the options the user have to capture their inspiration by enabling low light, high quality video capture. Third, from the left, we have AI color engine, something we developed to help users capture more vivid colors and ensure that they are faithfully reproduced. For the final one, I'd like to talk about Magic Log and LUTs. This year, we've taken our solution up to notch with Magic Log 2, offering support for higher dynamic range to help users create more cinematic videos. For a long time, photo and video capture lived in two separate worlds. Users just couldn't get a good photo while taking a video. We wanted to change it. So with the Magic 4 series, we specially dedicated resources in designing a feature that lets users do both at the same time. We also developed AI that could recognize what we call the magic moment, where you are filming and automatically pick them out as photos. With it, capturing more memories has, I think, never been easier. And of course, we have our eyes set on the future. We have a vision. We want to empower every user to have the ability to take great images at any time, from any distance and in any condition. To bring that vision to life, the first thing we have to do is to create smartphone cameras that is so powerful that matches what professional cameras have to offer. We've identified a few key areas to tackle. For example, if we compared smartphone to dedicated cameras, the 3A, the burst, the shutter rate are still low, and the dynamic range and the light sensitivity of a single frame are also limited. On those areas, we want to achieve the feature parity. Second, we will invest even more into R&D into new areas such as computer visions, computer graphics, and the human visual system. If we are able to create this multi-dimensional and self-improving image system, and one that can collect information beyond just the RGB light, and leverage more customized and powerful hardware for computer vision and computer graphics, we will revolutionize photography as we know it, and enable everyday users to recreate the real world in a digital way without compromise. That is all for my presentation. Thank you all your time, Peter.
Okay, thanks, Dr. Hu. That was really interesting, and and despite all the advances that we're seeing in the Magic 4 series of smartphones, it looks like there's still a lot of room for further improvements to come, which is something to look forward to. So now we've heard a lot about how great the Honor smartphone camera systems are. So let's hear from someone who has a lot of experience of using many different types of cameras, including Honor's latest smartphone. And that's Eugenio Recuenco, who is a renowned photographer known for his unique shooting style. And he's most recently shot a short film entirely on the Honor Magic 4 Pro. So Eugenio is going to share his perspectives on how all this technology is being used to capture some truly magic moments. Eugenio is going to present in Spanish, but there will be subtitles provided. Eugenio, over to you.
Gracias, Peter. Es un placer estar con todos vosotros porque realmente estoy aprendiendo mucho de qué hay detrás de la herramienta que Honor me ha dejado para probar, ¿no? Me ofrecieron el reto, que ahora os voy a enseñar dentro de un momento, el reto de hacer una pieza artística audiovisual totalmente hecha con el smartphone y en donde he podido apreciar todas las cualidades que tiene, a pesar de que le hemos puesto en muchas dificultades y hemos aprovechado para llevarlo al límite. Os voy a poner un primer tráiler de lo que ha sido la pieza, no la voy a poner entera porque sería muy larga y bueno, y a partir de ahí ya os comentaré unas cuantas cosas que hemos hecho con el teléfono. Bueno, pues esto es un pequeño tráiler porque la pieza es muchísimo más larga. Forma parte de un trabajo un poco personal en donde, bueno, el reto era trabajar con un teléfono, pero al final no ha sido un reto porque lo que hice realmente fue cambiar una cámara por otra, ¿no? No hemos hecho nada especial para trabajar con el teléfono diferente a lo que haríamos con una cámara normal, pero sí que, por ejemplo, pues nos ha permitido poner la cámara en sitios que no son posibles con una cámara profesional, como quien dice, ¿no? Podría destacar una cosa y que para mí es lo más importante, que es el poder rodar en un formato logarítmico. ¿Por qué es tan importante? Porque a mí, desde ese momento, me da la sensación de que yo tengo el dominio sobre lo que estoy rodando, ¿no? Para mí es una de las cosas más importantes que ofrece el Honor, y es esa posibilidad de que tú eres el que, si bien te da la tecnología, tú decides en cada momento qué es lo que vas a poder hacer, ¿no? Es tener ese negativo tan ansiado que siempre hemos tenido un poco los fotógrafos, ¿no? De, bueno, yo tomo la foto y a partir de aquí, pues veremos a dónde lo llevo. Otra cosa que es de gran valor, a lo mejor no tanto en un formato tan profesional como el que hemos hecho nosotros, en cuanto al querer ser específicos en el detalle, es que tiene, bueno, pues 8 LUTs, que realmente para el usuario final es una maravilla, porque si ya has contado algo importante o has puesto algo importante delante del smartphone, te permite muy fácilmente poder editar unas películas y poder tener un material muy cercano al profesional prácticamente en la palma de tu mano. No es solamente el rodar o con calidad, sino es el poder decidir de forma rápida unos LUT que tienen una calidad cinematográfica y que simulan muy bien lo que es una película cinematográfica. Y luego, en la tercera parte, que podría ser la más complicada, ¿no? La necesidad de más iluminación para el teléfono, pues justamente es todo lo contrario, ¿no? Realmente, comparado con mi cámara de fotos y comparado con las cámaras de vídeo profesionales, necesitas muchísimo menos luz. ¿Qué quiere decir esto? Pues que a alguien que quiere capturar en cualquier momento imágenes, como me pasa a mí en el día a día, que muchas veces se lleva una cámara colgada, pues te permite llevar en el bolsillo todas estas posibilidades, ¿no? Aparte de eso, bueno, pues ya si añado en mi experiencia, pues que ha sufrido golpes y los ha superado, que ha sido sumergido y que ha rodado perfectamente, pues solamente me queda pues decir que tienes un aparato profesional en el bolsillo y que lo único, y eso es el único pero no es para el smartphone y para el Honor, sino es para los equipos, ¿no? Es decir, la industria cinematográfica estamos muy en una marcha que es muy difícil introducir un teléfono como estos a la hora de producciones más profesionales, pero no porque la tecnología no te lo dé, sino que es una cuestión de tiempo que tenemos que ir asumiendo todos los profesionales de la industria y los artistas como posibilidad que nos da y la industria como posibilidad que se les ofrece de facilitar los trabajos, ¿no? Y bueno, yo creo que después ya seguiremos hablando, pero lo más importante para mí en este encuentro que tenemos es que estoy entendiendo muchas de las cualidades que he podido experimentar con el Honor. Voy a comentar ahora unas cuantas fotos que han llegado para el concurso de Honor Magic Moment. Son unas cuantas que me sirven de ejemplo un poco para que la gente experimente y pueda tener unos guiños de a qué agarrarse, ¿no? Yo pienso que, por ejemplo, en esta primera foto, ¿qué es importante? Es importante la mirada que tiene el fotógrafo. Yo creo que ya no nos tenemos que preocupar de la calidad que nos da el teléfono, sino que nos tenemos que centrar en qué es lo que vamos a enseñar a los espectadores de nuestra fotografía, ¿no? En este caso, ¿qué es? Pues posiblemente es un sitio donde mucha gente pasa y no tiene esa mirada especial a lo que está ocurriendo a su alrededor, ¿no? Un fotógrafo es alguien que no retrata la realidad, sino que la cuestiona y la reduce a lo que es una fotografía, ¿no? Y entonces, de repente, esa realidad por donde pasa todo el mundo se convierte en una realidad que llama la atención, porque el cuadro de la fotografía es la que te hace que sea importante, ¿no? Otras fotografías como estas, pues yo creo que es un bonito momento para poder aprovechar y hacer fotos con HDR, pero no solamente las típicas fotos como las que vemos aquí, que sí, que son muy bonitas y que pues te transmiten unas ciertas sensaciones y demás, sino experimentar de una forma más artística hasta dónde nos puede llevar esta ventaja que nos da la cámara, ¿no? del Honor. Por la noche hay que tener cuidado, entre otras cosas, porque hay muchas veces que yo ya he empezado el otro día a probar la cámara y disparas por la noche y tienes que dejar claro que es la noche, porque como no sea muy cerrada la noche, se convierte en casi un día, ¿no? Pero ese juego, ese guiño de día-noche que nos permite la cámara, porque sube a unas ISOs insospechados increíbles, bueno, pues yo creo que es otro buen motivo, y yo siempre hablando de una parte artística, ¿no? De sacar provecho y sacar creatividad. Yo pienso que los retos lo que hacen es fomentar la creatividad, ¿no? Y es lo que me ha pasado a mí en esa experiencia que tuve rodando Kaleidoscope, ¿no? El tele, ¿qué decir del tele? Bueno, pues ahí ya es, cada uno puede utilizar el tele de una manera diferente. Yo, por ejemplo, en esta foto, que son algunas de las que hemos recibido y de las que se han empezado a presentar, yo el tele siempre lo utilizaría de forma artística como un medio de expresividad, no como un medio de acercarme a algo, ¿no? Para eso tengo las piernas, sino que el tele tiene otras funciones, tanto el tele como el gran angular tiene unas funciones que son expresivas y que yo creo que habría que bucear en ellas y que cada uno, bueno, pues intentase ver qué diferencias tiene una fotografía con angular, una fotografía normal y, bueno, pues que no sea solamente acercar las cosas, sino que vaya más allá. Y también, como he dicho antes, el angular, que a mí me ha sorprendido porque conocía angulares de cámaras de otros smartphones y realmente este angular me ha sorprendido porque ahora he visto lo que hemos hablado antes, que es el más amplio, pero yo ya realmente lo había sentido porque es algo que cuando lo abrí se me quedó un poco como me impactó, ¿no? Entonces yo creo que eso es otro buen punto donde agarrarse para poner expresividad como es esta fotografía, ¿no? Esa potencia que tiene el primer plano frente al final, ¿no? Y bueno, pues solamente intentar invitar a todos a que disfrutemos con las imágenes, ¿no? A que veamos la vida de una forma diferente a través de un cuadradito y que ese cuadradito lo compartamos con los demás y podamos transmitir sensaciones. Y nada más, es un poco lo que quería contar en esta primera parte de presentación y de ánimo para lo que es el Honor Magic Moment.
Thanks very much, Eugenio. Thank you very much. Really fascinating. And yeah, some amazing shots there. Incredible to think that, those were shot on a smartphone. And moving to our final speaker, someone who comes from Qualcomm. So Qualcomm is the company at the leading edge of chipset design and really one of the biggest enablers of computational photography, the technology that underlies a lot of how smartphones capture and process images like the ones that we've seen. Now, as I mentioned earlier, because of time zone issues, we had to record this part separately, but Judd Heap will be joining us for the Q&A. And so, therefore, to talk about the chip that powers the Honor 4 series of smartphones, please welcome Judd Heap, VP of Product Management from Qualcomm. Judd Heap, over to you. Thanks.
Thanks, Peter. Hi, everyone. My name is Judd Heap, and I'm Vice President of Product Management at Qualcomm Technologies. And I lead product management, which basically means product definition for camera, computer vision, and video encode and decode. So Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 is the latest Snapdragon device, which is in the Honor Magic 4. And the Qualcomm Spectra ISP is the part of the chip that actually handles the camera capability. And the Qualcomm Spectra ISP is not just a single ISP, it's actually 3 ISPs in one, which allows the chip to actually handle 3 cameras at the same time. And they're also 18-bit ISPs. So previous generations, this ISP was a 14-bit ISP, but in Snapdragon 8 Gen 1, it has been increased by 4 bits to 18 bits. And that actually means it's 4,096 times more camera data, which means that you'll get much more accurate and detailed video and snapshots. Also on the device is an AI engine. And the AI engine has many different applications, but the one, of course, that we're interested in discussing the most today is how AI is used for camera. And again, this is Qualcomm's 7th generation AI engine. And that means it has up to 4 times higher performance than in previous generations. The AI engine itself consists of the Adreno GPU, the Hexagon processor, the sensing hub, the Cryo CPU, and associated memory. But it also is tightly coupled to the Spectra ISP so that camera data can be easily exchanged between the ISP or between the camera and the AI engine. We've talked a lot about computational photography in recent years. The first stage of computational photography is based upon one camera and one ISP to achieve multi-frame fusion and integration of different sources of image data. Starting from the Honor Magic 3 series, Honor built the Honor Image Engine based upon the Qualcomm Snapdragon 888 mobile platform and made greater innovation and breakthroughs on computational photography, allowing images taken by different lenses and processed by multiple ISPs to complement each other to achieve an improvement in image quality. But on the Magic 4 series, the Honor Image Engine continued its evolution on the Qualcomm Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 mobile platform. Honor had deep access to the capabilities of the 7th generation Qualcomm AI engine, resulting in the innovative algorithm Honor developed for its ultra fusion photography, fully releasing the raw domain computational photography capabilities. This included an AI raw domain image computational photography, as well as raw domain video computational photography. Honor Image Engine has a flexible framework. While Qualcomm's ISP can support high throughput of multi-threading and parallel processing, which leads to innovative function and user experiences like advanced snapshot while video recording. Honor integrates photos and videos through the Honor Image Engine and calls on the ISP resources offline for photo processing. Thank you very much.
All right, thanks, Judd. That was really interesting. Now I'm going to take advantage of having you here to ask you a quick question. As we kind of head towards the panel session, but I mean, one of the things that we've seen is that although average chipset speeds across the industry have somewhat plateaued. I mean, they're high, super fast, but somewhat plateaued. But we've also seen tremendous performance gains, particularly around the AI engine, and they continue to grow steeply. So you're delivering a tremendous amount of horsepower to your OEM partners, but perhaps you could talk a little bit more about exactly how you help companies like Honor to really kind of deliver that great imaging experience.
Yeah, sure. Actually, it's really interesting. Camera is the area where most OEMs really want to differentiate, and Honor is no different. In fact, Qualcomm really partnered deeply with Honor on the Magic 4. And like you said, we've increased clock rates and performance, but it really, to get the best image quality, the best user experience with the lowest power, you need to harness that power efficiently as possible. So what Qualcomm did with a dedicated engineering team, we worked really closely with Honor on the Magic 4 to make sure that data from the ISP, like I said before, gets into the AI engine and back really, really efficiently. And so that's what we really concentrated on, was making sure that you could harness that power and get the data back and forth between the two cores really efficiently, so that you get a great user experience without running down your battery.
Great, thanks very much, Judd. Okay, we will reconvene now with the rest of our speakers and move into a panel discussion. And I think it's probably appropriate to ask the first question to you, Dr. Hu. Now, it sounds like Qualcomm and Honor work very closely in order to optimize the very many features of the latest Snapdragon chipset within the smartphone. And my guess is that this is the case with all of Qualcomm's OEM partners. So considering the Magic 4 Ultimate's top performance ranking, my question is, what are the areas that Honor has been prioritizing with respect to the camera? Now, has your team really been focusing around optimizing multi-camera, integration of fusion technology, or are you trying to be an exceptional all-rounder? Yeah, how would you answer that?
Thank you, Peter. That is a very good question. Honestly speaking, creating an all-rounder hasn't been our main goal. Even professional cameras have their own niches and shortcomings, like on smartphones. At Honor, our main priority has always been improving image quality and the user experience around photos and video capture. We want to make streamline how users can capture their moments, lower the barrier to entry, which is why we put a lot of resource and effort into bringing out our multi-camera fusion strategy to life. And of course, continuously improving our Honor image engine. With our fusion algorithms, users get very consistent quality on their image across some of the most popular zoom ranges. On the image engine, on the other hand, works in the background to weave everything together in a coherent manner, allowing users to tap into the full capabilities of our smartphone cameras with ease. So, in a nutshell, we want to make quality image some more easy, accessible to users. I hope that might answer your question. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Hu. Yes, I think it does. So, if I could turn to you, Hervé. So, Honor seems to have made a lot of the right choices in terms of technology, both on the hardware and on the software side. But for some broader context, what are the few things that you see as most important in a smartphone camera? You know, are there any priorities that you look for?
Yes, Peter, thank you for that question. I think the challenges remain the same for all manufacturers. We are expecting to get the best image quality and the best user experience for all the modes. The thing is that as technology evolves and as photo space and video space evolve, there are more and more challenges. In fact, 2 or 3 years ago, the main challenge was for photo main camera. Now the challenge is to provide consistent quality all over the photo space and the video space. For the photo space, as Dr. Hu said, the low light, the zoom, and all the technology that will bring better user experience are, of course, mandatory. Capture the instant is also something that is very important just right now. There's a lot of effort from all the industry to provide the right picture at the right time with the right shutter time to capture the right movement into the pictures. So there's a lot of topics that are open. One last maybe that I can list is the video HDR experience, which is something that is coming more and more, and that will be very interesting in the coming months.
Okay, thanks, Hervé. So I guess we're not just talking about shooting a great photo, but also the overall user experience as being kind of critically important to capturing the moment. So Eugenio, if I can turn to you, speaking as a photographer and film director, you work with some of the most sophisticated camera setups available. But what about when it's just a smartphone? What kind of things are you looking for?
Muy buena pregunta, Peter, porque lo que buscaba antes y después de la experiencia que he tenido con Honor es totalmente diferente, ¿no? Habitualmente yo he utilizado el teléfono móvil para capturar imágenes más como recuerdo, como memoria o como un dossier fotográfico a lo largo del día de ideas, de acumulación de ideas, y ahora sí se me abre la posibilidad de utilizar parte de esas fotografías como foto final. Pero sobre todo y lo más importante que se me ha abierto es en mi carrera, por ejemplo, hacia el cine. Yo siempre he dicho que el cine era algo que era excesivamente caro de producir, ¿no? Yo creo que ahora se abre la posibilidad no tanto en sí, por tener una cámara más ligera, que además te permite pues, ubicarla en sitios que las cámaras profesionales no te permiten, el que ahora, si tienes una buena idea, se me ha abierto la expectativa de que puedes hacer una película. ¿Por qué? Porque se está democratizando de esta manera un poco el poder acceder al mundo audiovisual con una calidad. Y no solamente por tener una cámara que es más barata, más fácil, sino porque es mucho más fácil de usar porque necesitas mucha menos gente para desarrollar las películas. Y ahora se me ha abierto un horizonte donde con muy poquito, porque con la luz natural que tienes y una buena historia, puedes siempre hacer una película, ¿no? Entonces, es un cambio de concepto de qué es lo que quiero contar a partir de ahora, ¿no? No sirven las excusas de esto es muy complicado o esto es muy caro, sino que realmente es el momento de ponerse a trabajar para poder utilizar esta herramienta a favor, ¿no? No como excusa. Entonces, creo que la pregunta cambiaba. Yo llegué a este reto buscando si podría igualar una cámara tradicional de rodaje y ahora lo que me pregunto es qué puedo hacer con esta cámara tan pequeña y tan fácil de usar, ¿no? Entonces, bueno, en ese camino es lo que más me gustaría experimentar a partir de ahora. Gracias, Peter.
Okay, thanks, Eugenio. And it's really amazing, to think how far smartphones have come just even in the last 2 or 3 years. So, if we then look forward to maybe what comes in the next 2 or 3 years, and maybe this is a good question for you, Dr. Hu, can you give us a peek into the future and perhaps share a bit about what maybe the next generation of magic smartphones might have in store for us? Now, you hinted in your presentation, and I'm curious, are we sort of getting close to the point where smartphones begin to rival DSLRs, not just in some scenarios, but in pretty much all scenarios?
Thanks, Peter. The short answer is definitely yes. Technology is always moving forward, and given enough time, I believe smartphone cameras in the future will eventually be on par with today's DSLR in terms of performance. In fact, in some scenarios, I think we are already very close to that. But until then, there's still plenty of room for us to improve our cameras and for us to continue to push the limit. We will need to invest more into R&D. We have to find a way to overcome some of the current limitations. For instance, we need to figure out how we can continue to improve our cameras in a slim smartphone. For that, we are exploring how we can leverage multi-cameras and the sensors to achieve the all-for-one and one-for-all synergy. We also want to improve the efficiency of computational photography and videography and enable a device to output quicker and with better accuracy, all for the sake of providing users with better quality photos and videos. We want to spread the joy of the photography so that it's not something exclusive to pros through technologies such as AI scene recognition and photo assessment. We want to empower everyday user with the skills to catch their magic moment. There are challenges that we believe all OEMs face. We have our eyes set on the computational photography, and it's a direction we will be heading towards. It could be the best solution that allows us to make the most of the hardware, the lenses, the sensors, processors, you name it. I look forward to sharing more of what excites us in the fields of computational photography in the future, when what we have in our pipeline are ready for the limelight. That's all for my answer. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Dr. Hu. Hervé, if I can come to you, I mean, you've seen the evolution of the smartphone camera better than anybody else. So you're perhaps best positioned to gauge where smartphone devices are now and where they're headed. So how close are we to the point where smartphones rival DSLRs, and what are the major hurdles that remain to be overcome?
Yeah, overall, it depends on the purpose that you are requesting from the DSLR or from the smartphone camera. The DSLR is a very good tool to capture one instance, but maybe not the perfect tools in order to develop and to process the pictures or the video. There's a lot of work that still needs to be done, mostly with dedicated software, in order to have a very nice picture or a very nice video. On the smartphone point of view, they are already providing both, which is a great challenge. And on that point of view, if the question is, what is the tools that provide the best skills and the best capabilities with the capture and also on the other side, the processing, I would say that smartphone industry already exceed the quality and the feature they provided to the final user with respect to the DSLR. One that said, if you are looking at the DSLR capture capabilities and the use of a DSLR, there are many topics that are still a challenge for the smartphone industry. At first, I would say that we cannot speak about just one DSLR. There is one DSLR and a multiple selection of lens that will provide also a very good quality and a very good capture capabilities. And for sure, when you are performing portrait with DSLR, you will not use the same lens than when you are performing wildlife capture, for example. And the challenge for smartphone is still there, which means that with just one combination of multiple camera with a very small package, how can I provide the whole photographer experience? And here, there's still a lot of challenge for hardware and also, of course, for computational photography. Then for the video part, as I said, with the development of the HDR display and the HDR capabilities on the capture side, here same thing. I think the smartphone is providing a lot of features that are not only available on the DSLR, and there's still a lot of challenge in order to provide a perfect user experience for HDR, but it's true for video, but also in the future maybe for pictures and photo.
Great, thanks, Hervé. And I guess the net of all of this is that the best camera is the one that you have with you, and you're more likely to have a smartphone with you than a large and bulky DSLR. So I think that brings us to the end of the panel section. So thank you very much, Hervé. Thanks, Eugenio, Dr. Hu. Certainly a lot to consider there. And I think our discussion hopefully has opened up more questions for many of us on the new directions that smartphone imaging is taking. So with that, we'll conclude this section of the webinar and we'll move to the live Q&A. And as I mentioned before, we're going to provide some live interpretation for our Chinese colleagues. So please click on the translate button with the headphone icon at the bottom of the screen. And let's get into the questions. He's not able to join us for the Q&A, but Judd is back and magically transferred several thousand miles to a hotel room somewhere. So thanks, Judd, for rejoining us.
Of course.
So we're getting a few questions in, but just before we get to the questions, just to remind a few things. So there's a Q&A icon at the top right of the screen. If you want to ask a question, please click on that and ask away. We'll try and get to all the questions that we can. And further reminder that there is an ability to see Chinese translation or hear Chinese translation by clicking on the small headset icon on the bottom right. So let's get into some questions. And I've got a few coming in here. So actually, the first one, Doctor Who, if you're able to hear me, great. So the first question for you is that, and actually I remember when the Magic 4 was launched, George Shang kind of made particular mention of the 3D time of flight camera as being, somewhat unusual. So yeah, 3D time of flight cameras are becoming kind of rare in smartphones, even in flagships. Why is Honor using a 3D time of flight sensor, and is this something that we're likely to see more of in future, or is Honor sort of special in this regard? We can't hear you, Doctor Who. Just while we try and sort out the audio issue, can you? Okay, yep, we can hear you now. Did you hear my question?
Yeah, I heard the question, and there was something wrong with my mic. Sorry about that.
No worries.
So the 3D ToF actually it becomes real indeed. Actually, I think there are two reasons mainly. First, the smartphone nowadays is becoming slimmer and slimmer. And it's very hard to fit in a 3D ToF in fitting 3D ToF in it. So I think this is the very it is a very limitation for the OEMs to put in a 3D ToF in their phones. So the second, I think it's just relatively expensive for 3D ToF. But in Honor, we still believe the 3D ToF actually is helpful in some certain scenarios, such as it helps autofocus in a low light condition, and it helps enhance the bokeh effect for portrait mode. So we don't really want to sacrifice the user experience, so we choose to have it. So we work out. We just push our R&D team hard to try to put the 3D ToF in our Magic 4 series, and we also work out the Honor engine to wave all the cameras to the 3D ToF and to the AI algorithms. We try to make the image quality just with a very, we just want to deliver a very high quality images for customers. And so I think that's all.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Doctor Who. So maybe a question for Judd now. In your presentation, you mentioned that the 8 Gen 1 has 3 ISPs. Do you expect to see an increase in that number? As we sort of see the number of camera sensors or camera modules in a device grow, is there a need for even more ISP power, and how is that likely to be delivered?
Yeah, it's a good question. Actually, on Snapdragon 8 Gen 1, we added even a 4th ISP, but it wasn't for the main camera system. It was more for security and detection of the environment and that sort of thing. Kind of an always ready camera. But back to the actual question, I don't see us going beyond 3 ISPs, because if you think about it, what Doctor Who talked about, needing the ability to really transfer and fuse easily between 3 cameras. The scenario you have is like your main camera, if you're using that, and then you have your wide and your tele. So being able to transition between these cameras seamlessly, the number 3 is actually a really good number for that, because you can always have all 3 cameras powered up and ready to go, no matter what the user does with pinching and zooming. Also, the 3 cameras helps you optimize to get the best performance out of some of the professional mode features, like being able to shoot, 2 cameras rear, 1 camera front for doing videography with a narrator, that sort of thing. I don't see a point in going above 3 for those reasons in a smartphone. But I will say it could even go down, and maybe there'll be some other questions along this line. But as we go to more advanced optical systems, where 1 camera can cover a wider range of focal lengths, for example, like with an actual mechanically moving zoom lens, we may get to the point where we only need 2 cameras on the rear of the phone instead of 3. So I think it's 3 for a while, and it could even go down to 2.
Okay, interesting, and good to hear the logic behind the use of different ISPs there. Okay, one for Hervé. Looking at smartphones, you have this kind of optimization for different situations. So imaging, videography, and every OEM seems to have a particular hero feature that they're focusing on within the imaging system. So how difficult does it get for you as a somebody who's testing many different phones to really separate and differentiate between particularly at the sort of the top end? There's seems to be a lot of commonality, but how do you separate these out and sort of find the differentials?
Yeah, there's a lot of hero features, and there's a lot of different proposition, and at the end we need to summarize all these features into 1 or 2 numbers that are at least correlated with the user experience. For that purpose, we are working with many different kind of axes. The first one is to check very regularly what are the use of the smartphone and what are the needs from the final user perspective. And from that purpose, we are working a lot with users of the company and so on. In parallel, we are also working a lot in order to prepare the future, which means adding a lot of tests. And it is true for the lab, but also true for the perceptual scope. As I said, we are always mixing lab and perceptual. And that means to automate as much as possible tests, because in fact we need to test more and we need to be as exhaustive as possible. This is a challenge, and to do that we have a lot of research that are ongoing, and this kind of research are also of course available for all the industry. We can work with some key player on some dedicated topics. So in fact, the public report is the more correlated with the current usage, but of course we are already working on the next version of the protocol. It is very important to start this kind of work something like 1 or 2 years before the launch of the public protocol.
Okay, thanks, Hervé. Another question for you, Dr. Hu. And this I guess this is an interesting question, and it sort of speaks to one of the features of the Magic 4 camera system, that you can take a small video and then extract a still image from it in very high quality. So do you think that users should concentrate on taking small video clips and then kind of extracting the particular moment that they want from it, or is it still better to take a single still image?
Yes, Peter. It's a very good question. I think for the longest time, the photo and video capture lived in 2 separate worlds. Users just couldn't get a good photo while taking video. As we understand that videos and the still photography are the equal importance to consumers, especially when they like to capture important moments of their lives with both videos and the still photos. We have dedicated resources into designing a feature that let users achieve both at the same time. Addressing this pain point around photo capture during video recording only has made fundamental changes to how photos and videos are processed to enable users to take high quality images even when a video is being shot. I think together with our self-developed AI algorithms, we could help users identify their next moment automatically and pick out HD photos from the video. So I think if people really want to focus on the video as a capture, they just can do the video capture without thinking about taking still photos. Yes.
All right. Thanks, Dr. Hu. Question for let me see now. Question for Judd, I think. So Nikkei, the Japanese news agency, reported that Sony Semiconductor expects image quality of stills taken with a smartphone to reach or surpass that of DSLRs by 2024, so 2 years or so. Do you agree? What's your view on achieving that? And we talked a bit about it in the webinar, but yeah, interested to get your perspective.
Yeah, and of course, Sony Semiconductor Solutions that makes the image sensors that goes into a lot of today's smartphones is doing an incredible job at really moving the image quality higher and higher. And I think I would have said maybe a few years ago that no, we wouldn't get there, but I am hugely impressed by what Qualcomm's OEMs are doing, especially Honor in making the image quality better and better year over year. And of course, my colleague Hervé would probably agree with me that some of the problems to really approach the same image quality that you would get in a DSLR would be making sure that we have really good telephoto, because it's really difficult on a smartphone because of the thickness to do that, or handling motion as well as a large sensor and a large lens can in a DSLR. WYSIWYG viewfinders, these are things that the DXOMARK really tests for. I would have said one of the barriers a while back would have been creative control, but working with Honor and what Eugenio said, I think we've overcome that problem. So I think a lot of the problems we've had for image quality to compare a smartphone against a DSLR is really these physical things. But I would say that to counteract that, the smaller lenses, the smaller image sensors, the processing power that Qualcomm brings, in the ISP and the AI engine is huge compared to any DSLR on the market. The capability, the processing capability of Snapdragon is mammoth compared to any other camera out there. So that's what's really allowed us to make these leaps forward with our partners like Honor to get the best image quality, out of a more constrained image sensor and optical system. So long-winded answer to say yes, I think 2024 or some would argue maybe even today we are there for still photography, that the image quality is a lot of times I think most users probably won't be able to tell the difference in a lot of photos between a smartphone and a high-end DSLR.
Yeah, right. And I think for the vast majority of pictures being taken are not going to be printed on A3 size paper. They will be used in social media and that sort of thing. And I think in those contexts, smartphones are superb because of the speed with which you can process and then publish the photos onto your chosen platform. Makes them extraordinarily powerful.
Absolutely.
So question for you, Hervé, maybe Dr. Hu can add to this. So this is sort of coming to the telephoto lenses. So we have the situation where you have kind of periscope cameras, so folded optics to provide the telephoto, but we're also seeing shorter range, very high resolution cameras where you can essentially kind of zoom in on a small portion of it. What do you see as the benefits and drawbacks of both approaches?
both technology are providing different kind of features. The periscope will enable to get longer focal, which means that, for example, for wildlife photography, it could be very convenient. It means that in your smartphone, you will be able to get focal such as 200 millimeters, 300 millimeters, which is very long, which is corresponding to very large lens in the DSLR industry. So this is a big challenge. The drawback of such kind of combination for now is the light collection capacity. I mean, with periscope system, you cannot have, I mean, a large sensor and so on. But for sure, things will evolve and things will be improved over the months. And periscope is very interesting for this long-range focal. Once that's said, the more popular focal are still portrait focals, which is what we call the standard lenses, which are between, let's say, 50 millimeters until 150 millimeters in the photography, in the full frame photography. And for such focal, you do not need periscope. You can use classical lenses, and you can also provide wider, larger sensor and maybe a wider aperture in order to catch more information. So both technology are providing interesting features, and they can be used, in fact, in combination in order to maximize the user experience over the whole focal range. But I'm pretty sure that Dr. Wu can complete this first.
Yeah, Dr. Hu, would you like to add any thoughts to that?
Okay, thanks, Peter. Yes, in honor, it is a very interesting question, and in honor, we think both the two approaches have their advantages and shortcomings. According to our user research, the most used the focal length range is from just about 1 to about 7 or 8 times. So we try to provide the best image quality for this range of focal length. Just as we have mentioned before, and the zooming performance and in DXOMARK test, the Magic 4 Ultimate is just outstanding. So, but it doesn't mean we sacrifice the long range. Thanks to our ultra filtering technologies, we try to use multiple raw frames to enhance the long range images. So in our solution, we try to provide just a fairly even image qualities across all the focal length. Thanks.
All right, thanks, Dr. Hu. And maybe I can give the last question to you as well. So, looking forward, how far can smartphone camera technology go? What do you think will be the next big step forward that we can look forward to?
All right, thanks, Peter. As I said before, in honor, our vision is just to empower users to take great photos anywhere, anytime, and in any condition. I think to achieve this, we tap into technologies such as the computer vision, computer graphics, and the mirror system. So the image processing technologies rely most on the computer vision processing, including face detection, image denoising, and the super resolution, etc., in order to enhance photos and videos to a level that is similar to how human eyes perceive them. But Honor aims to go beyond that and enable users to recreate the world digitally with zero compromise. And this is a very new brand. This is a very brand new approach that hasn't been deployed by other solutions. So I think that will be a big step for the photography of smartphones in maybe next few years. Thanks.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Hu. And that brings us to the end of the Q&A session. And I'm sorry if we didn't get to your questions. If you've submitted them, we will get back to you with an answer. But for now, it just remains for me to thank Dr. Hu Weilong from Honor, Hervé Makotzinski from DXOMARK, Judd Heap from Qualcomm, and earlier Eugenio Recuenco, film director and photographer. I've been Peter Richardson. This has been a Counterpoint webinar, and we look forward to welcoming you to the next one coming up very soon. Thank you very much for your time. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye now.